I don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a flame in your heart. In my heart I have but one desire, and that one is you. No other will do. I've lost all ambition for worldly acclaim.
Hey gamers, Blandy here. It's October 2024, and as I press on trying to play the games in my backlog, the next one I chose was the classic Fallout 3. Before I go any further, I want to ask all of you, have you played Fallout 3 before? Or any other Fallout game? And are you a fan of the series? So, to be honest, even though Fallout 3, 4, and New Vegas have been sitting in my library for a long time now, the Fallout show that recently came out kind of inspired me to try out one of the games. I thought the show was a lot of fun, but maybe that's just me. If you've seen it, what are your thoughts on the show's adaptation of the game series? No spoilers, please. I really enjoyed it, and to my surprise, my wife quite liked it too. But neither of us had any background in the Fallout universe, so it was a new experience for us. So I, like so many other people, wanted to know if the games that the show was based on would be as good as the show. And I had 3 options to choose from. I heard pretty good stuff about all of them, so I chose to start from the start. Now, when I say the start, I mean in the 3D era of Fallout. As you might expect, there were 2 Fallout games previous to this entry, developed by Interplay Productions. Those games had similar moods and themes, but significantly, those 2 games were in 2D. They were turn-based role-playing games in an overhead, trimetric view. If you're wondering, trimetric is similar to isometric, just at a different angle. After Fallout 2, Interplay sold the rights to the series to Bethesda, and Bethesda transitioned Fallout 3 into a 3D game. At this point, Fallout was dormant. Fallout 2 was released in 1998, and games were moving into the third dimension at this point. Fallout 3 released on October 28, 2008, and between 1998 and 2008, we moved from the early days of Nintendo's N64 to the early days of the Wii. Fallout needed to transition, and Bethesda already established themselves as a creator of large open-world games. They had just wrapped up on the Elder Scrolls IV: Oblivion and turned their attention to developing a new world for a new game. Originally developed as a Western US locale, they eventually converted the setting for the new game in Washington, D.C., which was close to where the company was based and much more familiar for them to develop. It turns out the size of the world in Fallout 3 was approximately the size in Oblivion, if you're interested in the comparison. And this game was the first in the series to venture onto consoles, releasing for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, as well as PC. And Bethesda did well, according to sales. They outsold the original game by about 10 times, selling well over 10 million copies. And now Bethesda continues to make numerous products for the Fallout franchise. There are a few full games, mobile games, a television series, and probably more. But today, I'm only reviewing Fallout 3, as it's the only game in the entire franchise that I've ever played. And an important distinction, I played the Game of the Year edition, which has some DLC content included. We'll get into those details a bit later. I played the game on my Steam Deck and LCD version, and it played well on it, though I did have several times where the game crashed to desktop. Now, Steam says it's not verified, only playable on the Steam Deck, but it ran mostly fine on it. I didn't notice any problems with the resolution, text, menus, or anything like that, so I'm not sure what prevents this game from being verified. But it wasn't flawless. I'll get into those details soon. I was able to get over an hour and a half per charge, so a decent runtime on the battery. And if you're wanting to play this game, looks like you'll need a PC, unless you can get your hands on a second-hand copy for the PS3 or Xbox 360. On Steam, the standard price is $27 Canadian, but it has a couple sale prices if you want to get it cheaper. Occasionally you'll find it 75% off, just under $7, but more likely you'll find it 67% off, just under $9. Both are decent sales, so I guess it depends on how patient you are to get a good sale. And you'll be able to install this game without using a ton of space. Steam recommends 7 gigs, but mine is just under 9 gigs. Even at that though, it's a small game, relatively speaking. And keep in mind this game is rated M by the ESRB. They warn of blood and gore, though they kind of do go beyond that too. Some enemies will dismember when you kill them, so you may be looking at an arm on the ground, or a head, or, well, you get the idea. Also, if you hit a crit as you kill an enemy, they'll disintegrate into a pile of dust. So if you're worried that your kids will be traumatized by people turning into piles of dust, this game ain't for you. They warn of intense violence. If what I said about people disintegrating didn't clue you into that, I have concerns for you. There are sexual themes as well. Nothing graphic, but there are conversations about prostitutes and things like that. This game has strong language, which would be pretty much expected given the other warnings. And the ESRB warns about drug usage. This one is interesting. I mean, yes, there's drug usage. Let's get that out of the way. But the game underwent a revamp because various regions wouldn't certify the game due to the original depictions of healing, which had you injecting morphine. So morphine was changed to stim packs, and the animation of injecting yourself was removed. So you're still taking a drug, and you're still injecting yourself, it's just different from the original. I'm not really sure what makes the animation in the BioShock games different, but that's a conversation for another day. Or maybe for my Discord channel. Despite its rating, restrictions, and changes, people really enjoy this game. Metacritic rates this game in the low 90s, and Steam's approval rating sits at 80% with 37,000 reviews. But this is my review, and do I agree with Metacritic or Steam? Well, before I get started into my personal opinions about this game, I want to say that this review is going to show and discuss some details of the game that you may not want spoiled. You need context, and I want to provide it, but I have to give you some of those plot details and show some gameplay footage. I'll do my best not to show too much, but just know that you have been warned. Potential spoilers ahead. First, let's give an overview of the story. If you know anything about the Fallout universe, it'll be that there has been a nuclear apocalypse, as you might guess from the name. Much of humanity has hunkered down in vaults scattered throughout the United States as the nuclear fallout ravages the surface world. You play the role of the lone wanderer. You start the game playing as a baby, very literally. You crawl around and make baby noises as you learn a little bit about your parents and pick your special skills. Then you have a few scenes where you grow up in the vault. You experience a birthday, talk with friends and bullies, take a test, and then things start to kick off from there. As you can imagine, your time being a vault dweller will come to an end. Your father leaves the vault without giving you any significant information as to why, and you decide to follow after him. You step out from the dim light of the subterranean world and let your eyes adjust to the new world in front of you, a desolate wasteland of dirt and rocks as far as you can see. And now you're free to explore the world. With the aid of your Pip-Boy, the armband that provides you with most of your valuable information, you can get started with various quests, if you want, or you could just wander and experience the world. Be careful because all around you are hazards that are unique to this world. Various areas are irradiated, and that can accumulate within you if you stay in it long enough. And it won't go away on its own, so you'll need some RAD-away to clear it out of your system. And all that radiation affected the creatures of the world too, so you'll be fighting against a bunch of mutated bugs, animals, and people. And after a couple hundred years of disrepair, the land in and around Washington, D.C. is pretty wrecked. Overpasses have collapsed, rubble lies everywhere, the buildings have fallen apart, and the people that live on the surface have gathered in small defensive communities. It looks bleak, it feels creepy, and the vibe of the game is really well done. You can easily get distracted in this game. Like I mentioned earlier, the size of this map is approximately the size of the one in Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. It's pretty big. Sure, it's not, Skyrim or Grand Theft Auto 5, but this was 2008, and the map had a lot to offer. And the side quests can keep you busy for a while. I did a couple side quests, and they took me more than a couple hours each, which is great. Well, kinda. The first quest I chose was to examine the source of a radio transmission. It turns out that it was a side quest, but I couldn't tell from the quest menu in my Pip-Boy. I found the spot I needed to go to, clicked on something in the ground, and suddenly I am in space, locked inside a small room in a spaceship. Now, when I tell you I'm playing Fallout 3, I'm willing to bet the first thing that comes to your mind is not a space adventure. It wasn't mine either. So for the next 5 hours, I wandered around this bland spaceship, recklessly killing most of the aliens. Not all of them, though. I had karma to consider. And I did my best to figure out how to get off this damn ship because I just couldn't quit the quest. I'm in space. I have to complete it, and I got frustrated and bored really early on. At least I got some really good weapons out of it, so maybe it was worth it, but we'll talk about those weapons soon. Those weapons. Finally, I got off the spaceship and did none of the Fallout type stuff that I expected to do. So I went after another quest. This quest led me to the Pit. I didn't realize it at the time, but the Pit is one of the DLC added in the Game of the Year edition. Again, I spent a few hours tackling this quest, and this was much more interesting, but I felt like I wasn't going anywhere forward in the game. After that, I decided I would focus on completing the main quest. The other stuff is okay, but I wasn't buying into the world like I would have liked to. And that made a significant difference. The story started to make more sense, and I felt more engaged. The game definitely got more interesting, and I had more fun. I started to learn about my parents and the complex history of my early years. I found my dad and learned what his reason for leaving the vault was. Now, the gameplay wasn't great, but the feeling of progress was nice. And just when you thought you completed the game, bam! DLC. Broken Steel is an endgame add-on that continues the story beyond the original ending and adds a few more hours of gameplay. It's mildly okay, though the last quest is decent. And when you think you're done with that DLC, bam! You get nothing. You complete the objective, clear the quest, the ending is dramatic and all that, and that's it. No credits, no wrap-up of any kind. You're just standing there with an option to complete more quests if you're looking for more to do. So it goes without saying, I was very disappointed in the ending. I didn't get to see the original ending due to the DLC taking over, and the DLC ending was non-existent. I would say that is roughly the story, but I skipped a whole lot. The plot is pretty much the driver for this game, so I didn't want to give away more than necessary. So let's transition. Let's talk about playing this game and see if it's any good. This game is typically played in first person, though it can optionally be played in third person if you're weird like that. And people claim that this is also an RPG. I don't buy it. Sure, it has some upgradable elements to it, but that doesn't make it an RPG. It upgrades things kind of like League of Legends upgrades abilities. If Fallout 3 is an RPG, then League of Legends is also an RPG. Realistically, it's more of an action adventure. I would put it more along the lines of Borderlands, but people claim that's an RPG too, so I don't know. As a first-person shooter, let's talk about the most important part of that dynamic, the shooting. You would think that a first-person shooter would focus on tight shooting abilities, but nope, this game certainly does not. It is single-handedly the most frustrating part of this game. It is just absolutely frustrating. The ability to shoot accurately is non-existent. To have a reticle on screen almost feels arbitrary. To zoom with the left trigger feels like false hope. Even at point-blank range, you can easily expect to miss shots, and you might die quite a few times because your weapon misses every single shot. It is hard to express how much pent-up anger builds up when you can't get a shot to hit when you need it to. It shouldn't be this annoying. So there's a couple of things to note regarding shooting. One is that you're provided a system that kind of tries to simplify that. The VATS system allows you to stop time, target certain body parts, and see the likeliness of success, almost in an XCOM sort of way, if you're familiar with those games. My understanding is that that method was developed for this game as a way to bridge Bethesda's unfamiliarity with first-person shooting and the turn-based nature of the first two games. And yeah, I guess it's okay. You can shoot multiple times, targeting and sometimes crippling one or more body parts, as long as you have enough action points to perform the move. It's not great, but it does dull the pain of real-time shooting in this game. And second, weapons degrade over time. They all have durability bars, so the lower the bar, the less accurate it becomes. That is definitely something to be aware of, especially if you're able to swap a bad one for a better one from an enemy you had just killed. And of course, you're able to add skill points to increase your proficiency in particular weapons, so that will help you get more out of your guns as the game goes on. If you've ever played a Bethesda game, you'll notice many similarities across them, and one of those things is the ability to pick up items. You can pick up a whole lot of items in this game. See a plate? Pocket it. Empty cup? Yep. Dish detergent? Why not? While it's cool to fill the game with real-life stuff that people could expect to use, ultimately, it's just clutter. You won't pick up all this stuff because you have a limited inventory, and the weight slows you down. You can't get much selling the items, and they're in the way when you're scouting shelves for useful items. But for the first couple of hours, it's cool to see that they took care of small details like that. If you have items, you'll need to unload them on some schmuck. There are a few traders scattered around, but there aren't many. They have a limited amount of caps of Nuka-Cola bottles that are used for currency, that they can trade with. So if you're maxing out what they can give you, feel free to purchase ammo, which doesn't weigh anything, or you could finish that transaction, then go back into another transaction, and their cap limit will be reset. It seems silly, but it works. When you get injured out in the wasteland, you can heal up by injecting yourself with, not morphine, but a stim pack. There are a few other items that help as well, but not to the same extent. Plus, most other items also give you some radiation exposure, so keep that in mind. More effectively though is sleeping. If you can find an available bed, just take a nap. Any length of time will max out your health, so just an hour will do the trick. And I mentioned the Pip-Boy earlier. On your wrist, you will have a device that tracks all kinds of stuff. It's essentially a pause menu. You can choose your weapons on one screen, check your ammo on another, choose items to use on another, with the map and quests on other screens as well. And it works pretty well for the most part. The worst is probably the map. It can be helpful, but only in open, flat land. As soon as you need precision though, this map doesn't help much at all. When you're zoomed in all the way, you may still be confused to which way you should be going. It's not great. So to help out, you have a compass on your HUD, and it has cursors indicating the location of the next quest marker, which is great for the most part. If you're in an area that has multiple levels, then the compass becomes pretty useless as well. So ultimately, navigation can be a bit tricky. And as a side note, I really struggled moving the cursor around on the map. And it wasn't just the map I struggled with. The Pip-Boy as a whole wasn't very friendly. I just fumbled around with controls until eventually I memorized the menu screens I would use and how to navigate that way. There were a bunch of screens I never visited because they didn't provide anything I needed. I found the upgrade system to be a bit overwhelming. There were a ton of perks and skills to bump up, but it took a few minutes to read all the options to choose a skill upgrade, then another couple minutes to upgrade an additional perk, which was similar to a skill upgrade, and in reality may have just been an additional upgrade stated as a perk rather than a skill upgrade. It was more time consuming than it needed to be. There is a karma system in this game. Essentially, you're supposed to kill the bad guys and save the good guys. You'll see it occasionally flash on screen that your karma has changed. I never noticed an impact of those karma changes. That said, I never played around with it, so I didn't test the limits of what I could do. If you want to have lots to do in a game, this one's a decent job in filling in lots of side quest options, and having those side quests take some time and effort to clear. So those of you that like extra content beyond the main story, you could do lots in this game. And like many other Bethesda games, expect a lot of bugs. It's just in the DNA of that company. They're all pretty minor, except for the crashes to desktop. Otherwise, you'll see enemies get stuck, or go flying, or do other weird and sometimes hilarious things randomly. A few more thoughts before we finish up. I thought it was a fun, tiny detail, but you can control when your baby cries at the beginning of the game. It's stupid, but it's a nice touch. While the conversations with NPCs can be good, man, some of them just won't shut up. Some of them keep talking and talking. Maybe not to the extreme of Disco Elysium, but still, you could be listening to them yammer for a long time. As far as the enemies go, they didn't feel balanced. You'd be in an area where you can easily dispatch them, then you meet another enemy that just completely destroys you. Then you start running low on ammo and you're struggling as you're trying to figure out how to proceed. It can get frustrating quick. And the game would have felt way more fun if weapons aimed better, felt stronger, and side quests felt more valuable. So I think that's mostly everything I wanted to talk about today. If you're planning to play this game, put aside around 26 hours according to how long to beat. I put in 24 hours, but those times can vary wildly depending on how you play this game. So, now that I've played it, would I recommend others to play it? Well, if you're a lifelong gamer and you're looking to round out your gamer cred, sure. I think getting a Fallout game marked as played is a solid choice. This one is a decent game, so don't expect to be blown away or anything, but you'll be able to see how this game influenced other games and helped establish this world of Fallout and the Wasteland. But I've never played any other games in the series, so they might be better choices, to be honest. I'm not sure though. And if you're a fan of Bethesda games like Skyrim or Starfield, you may like this experience as well. If you're not one of those two groups of people, feel free to skip this. I don't think it's really worth considering. It's okay, but far from a great game. As for me, I'm good. Once I finished it, I was satisfied and had no urge to revisit this game again. I wish it drew me in more, but not every game is going to be able to do that. And is this game replayable? It certainly can be. If you're a completionist and like to finish all the quests, there's a lot to work with here. If you like messing around with the karma system, or trying different weapons, or you want to check out the content in the DLC packs, you can play with a lot of things in this game. And exploration on its own could be fun. And I'm guessing you could probably mod the hell out of it too, so that could be an option as well. So my final score for Fallout 3 Game of the Year Edition is going to be a 9 out of 14. 64%. There's potential here, but I found myself getting frustrated too often. The shooting was off, the weapons felt weak, the enemies didn't feel balanced, the side quests weren't a ton of fun. The atmosphere is great, and the overall mood was nailed down, but it wasn't enough to save this game for me. Overall, it was an okay experience. Thanks for listening to my wacky opinions about Fallout 3. Before I let you go, I'll give you a sneak peek at the final boss fight. So I've covered a lot, but I didn't cover everything. What did I miss? Was I fair? Was I wrong? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Here's where other YouTubers thank their patrons on Patreon. I don't have Patreon, so I'll thank you for watching. If you'd like to chat games with me, I'm available on Discord. Chatting about games is the reason I created this YouTube channel, so come join me in a conversation. I'd love to discuss games with other people that love games. Thank you once again. Without you, I'm just a weirdo talking into a microphone. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit like, and if you enjoy my content, a subscribe would make my day. I'm sitting at 23 subs and I'm trying to get to 25. Your help would mean a whole lot. I will see you folks in the next video and hope you have a wonderful day.